My name is Elena, and this story still echoes in my heart like a wave that never fades. That morning felt unusually quiet. My husband Mark had left early for a weekend business trip to Los Angeles. Our small house by the beach looked calm, almost too calm. The sound of the waves blended with the soft hum of the wind. Mark loved his work. I was proud of him, even if his frequent trips left me feeling a little lonelier each time. To distract myself, I decided to clean the house. I turned on my favorite jazz playlist, the soft notes floating through the air like comfort. As I dusted the shelves, I noticed the sunlight catching the photo frames, moments of our life frozen in smiles. For a second, I missed that warmth deeply. Then I heard a knock on the door. When I opened it, Ryan, our next-door neighbor and Mark's longtime friend, stood there with his usual easy smile. "Morning, Elena. I saw Mark's car gone. Thought I'd check if you need anything," he said. I smiled back. "That's kind of you, Ryan. I'm just doing some cleaning. Come in if you'd like." He stepped inside, bringing the smell of sea breeze and coffee with him. He'd recently moved back from San Diego after losing his job, and Mark had been helping him find work again. Over the months, Ryan had become like family. As I climbed a small stool to reach the top shelf, I suddenly lost my balance. Before I could fall, Ryan rushed forward, steadying me by the arm. For a moment, the world froze. My heart raced. Not because of him, but because of the shock. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern flooding his face. "I'm fine," I said quickly, laughing nervously. "That was clumsy of me." He smiled, though his eyes lingered on me longer than usual. Not in a wrong way, just full of something unspoken, maybe guilt or sadness. We sat on the couch to calm down. Outside, the sea shimmered under the morning sun. "It's strange how quiet the house feels when Mark's away," I said softly. Ryan nodded. "Yeah, loneliness has a sound of its own, doesn't it?" There was something in his tone that made me pause. A heaviness. I realized then that Ryan wasn't just a cheerful neighbor. He was a man fighting his own silence, his own emptiness. We talked for hours about work, life, and how time changes people. I noticed how tired his eyes looked, and for the first time, I saw a side of Ryan I'd never noticed before. Vulnerable, kind, lost. When he left that afternoon, I stood at the door watching him walk away, the sunlight fading behind him. For some reason, that day stayed with me long after he was gone the next morning. The sea looked gray, and the air felt heavy. I woke up earlier than usual, made myself coffee, and sat by the big window that faced the waves. The silence of the house felt louder than ever. Mark had texted me late last night, a quick message about meetings and hotel check-ins. The usual. I smiled reading it, but something in me felt distant, like my heart was floating somewhere else. Around noon, I heard a soft knock again. It was Ryan. He stood there with a small box in his hand. "Mark asked me to drop this off. He forgot some papers at home," he said, holding out the box. "Oh, thank you. Come in," I replied, my voice polite but uncertain. He stepped inside. The house smelled of fresh coffee and ocean air. We stood there awkwardly for a few seconds before I gestured toward the living room. "I was just about to have coffee. You want some?" Ryan smiled. "Sure, thanks. I could use that." As I poured the coffee, we talked about little things. His job search, the neighborhood, the weather. But under every word, there was something else. A quiet understanding, like we were both hiding emotions we didn't want to name. At one point, Ryan looked at the photo of Mark and me on the shelf. "You two look really happy there," he said quietly. "We were," I replied, smiling softly. "We still are. It's just, sometimes life gets busy, and the small things fade a bit." He nodded, his eyes thoughtful. "Yeah, I get that. Sometimes you don't realize what's missing until it's gone." Something in his tone made my heart ache. Maybe loneliness, maybe regret. I didn't know. We sat on the couch again, the same place as yesterday. The sound of waves filled the silence between us. Ryan's voice was softer now. "Elna, can I ask you something? Do you ever feel like you give everything to others, but no one really sees you?" His words hit deep. I looked down at my hands. "All the time," I admitted. "It's not that they don't care. It's just, sometimes we become invisible while keeping everything together." He nodded slowly, his gaze fixed on the floor. "I guess I've been feeling invisible too lately." Something about that moment felt fragile, like one wrong word could break it. I wanted to comfort him, to tell him he wasn't alone. So I reached out and lightly touched his hand, just for a second. But that second stretched too long. Ryan looked up, surprised, and our eyes met. There was no romance, no desire, only two people trying to be understood. But even then, I knew how dangerous misunderstandings could be. I pulled my hand back quickly. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean—" He shook his head gently. "It's okay, Elena, I know." A faint smile tugged at his lips, but his eyes were sad. The silence grew thicker, filled with words we didn't say. "I should go," he said finally, standing up. "Yes, probably," I replied softly. At the door he paused. "You've been kind to me, Elena. More than you know. Thank you." When he left, the house felt heavier than before. I sat on the couch, staring at the empty mug beside me. The sound of waves outside felt distant, almost accusing. For the first time in years, I realized how fragile emotions can be. How easy it is for kindness to be mistaken for something else, and how quickly loneliness can turn into confusion. That evening, when Mark called, I tried to sound normal. "How's your trip going?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. "Good, just busy. I'll be home tomorrow night," he said cheerfully. I smiled, but my heart was restless. I didn't tell him about Ryan's visit, not because I was hiding something, but because I didn't know how to explain what even I didn't fully understand. That night, I stood by the window again, watching the sea under the pale moonlight. The waves kept coming and going, like thoughts I couldn't control, and deep inside, I whispered to myself, some feelings are not meant to be understood. They're meant to be let go. The next evening, Mark came home earlier than expected. I heard the sound of the car door, then his footsteps, then his voice calling, "Elena, I'm home." It should have felt comforting. It always did. But this time, my heart felt heavy. I quickly wiped my hands, walked to the door, and smiled. "Welcome back." He hugged me warmly, his scent familiar and safe. "I missed you," he said. "I missed you too," I whispered, meaning it, but my mind was somewhere else, tangled in guilt and confusion I hadn't asked for. During dinner, Mark talked about his meetings, the traffic, the new restaurant he'd tried. I nodded, smiled, and listened, the way I always did, but every now and then, my thoughts drifted next door, where Ryan's house stood silent under the orange glow of the evening sky. Later that night, after Mark had gone to bed, I sat by the window again. The sea was calm, the moonlight silvering the waves. I thought about how easily kindness could blur into something it was never meant to be. I hadn't done anything wrong, yet something in my heart felt like it had crossed an invisible line. The next morning, I decided I couldn't live in this quiet storm anymore. I needed to clear the air, for myself and for Ryan too. I walked next door. Ryan opened the door slowly, surprise flickering in his eyes. "Eleanor, hey, everything okay?" "Yes," I said softly. "I just need to talk." He stepped aside and I walked in. The house smelled of coffee and paint. He'd been fixing old furniture to stay busy. For a moment, we both stood in silence. "Ryan," I began, my voice low but steady, "about yesterday. I think we misunderstood something. You were just being kind, and I was lonely. But kindness can sometimes look like something else when our hearts are tired." Ryan looked down, his jaw tense. "I know, I felt that too. And I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable." "You didn't," I said quickly. "But we both know we need to step back. It's better that way." He nodded slowly, his eyes softening. "You're right. I don't want to ruin the peace you and Mark have. You've both been good to me. Maybe it's time I move on. Start fresh somewhere else." His words hit me harder than I expected. "Where will you go?" "I got an interview," he said, a faint smile appearing. "A design company in New York. It's a chance to rebuild my life." For a long moment, we just stood there, not as confused neighbors, but as two people who had learned something valuable about boundaries, emotion, and strength. I smiled through the ache in my chest. "Then go, Ryan. Go and build the life you deserve." He nodded, and for the first time, I saw peace in his eyes. A week later, he was gone. His house stood quiet again, but this time it didn't feel heavy. It felt lighter, like the ocean after a storm. On the morning he left, I watched his car drive down the coastal road. He waved once before disappearing into the horizon. The sky was golden that day, a new beginning for both of us. That evening, Mark and I took a walk on the beach. The sun dipped low, and the waves brushed against our feet. Mark held my hand and smiled. "You've been quiet lately. Everything okay?" I looked at him, the man who had stood beside me through everything, and nodded. "Yes, Mark, everything's finally okay." He smiled, pulling me closer as the sea breeze danced around us. In that moment, I realized peace isn't found by holding on to what hurts. It's found by letting go of what never truly belonged to you. As the waves crashed softly against the shore, I whispered to myself, some connections aren't meant to last forever. They come to remind us how deeply we can feel and how strong we can be when we choose to do the right thing. And with that thought, I walked beside my husband, lighter, calmer, and ready to start again. Sometimes the heart confuses kindness for connection, but real love, the kind that lasts, is built on honesty, not temptation. And peace comes not from chasing what's missing, but from cherishing what you already have.